The day I signed away my car, I couldn't shake the memory of my brother destroying my first bike. I was 8, he was 11, and somehow it ended with me apologizing to him. Funny how history repeats itself. I'm Rachel, and I've spent 26 years being told that family comes first. What they really meant was my brother Quentin comes first. That bike incident? I remember it like yesterday. Mum had just finished braiding my hair for school when Quentin burst in, raving about a totally sick jump he'd seen the older kids do. Before I could protest, he'd grabbed my brand new purple Schwinn, the one I'd gotten for my birthday just 2 days before. "Come on, Rach, don't be such a baby," he'd said, already wheeling it toward the door. "I'll show you how it's done." I followed him outside, stomach churning. "Quentin, please, I just got it." He didn't listen. He never did. The sick jump was really just a plywood board propped on some bricks. I watched in horror as he pedalled full speed, hit the makeshift ramp, and crashed spectacularly into Mrs. Peterson's rose bushes. The bike's frame was bent. The chain had snapped. And somehow, when Mom and Dad came running out, I was the one who got lectured about enabling my brother's reckless behaviour. "You should have stopped him," Dad had said, his disappointment heavy in the air. "You're supposed to look out for each other." 20 years later, I was sitting in my electric blue Audi A4, the car I'd spent 3 years saving for while working 2 jobs, when my phone lit up with Quentin's name. "Little sis!" His voice had that familiar excited edge that always meant trouble. "You free for dinner tonight? Mum and Dad want us all there. I've got huge news." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "What kind of news?" "The best kind. Come on, you have to be there. 7 o'clock?" I should have said no, should have made up an excuse. Instead, I heard myself say, "Fine, I'll be there." The huge news turned out to be another one of Quentin's brilliant business ideas. This time, it was some app that would revolutionize pet care, or social media, or both. I stopped listening after the first 5 minutes of his pitch at the dinner table. "The investors are practically begging to get in," he was saying, gesturing with his fork. "I just need a little collateral to secure the initial funding." Mum beamed at him like he'd just cured cancer. Dad nodded approvingly. I focused on my pasta, already knowing where this was heading. "Rachel," Mum's voice had that soft, manipulative tone I knew too well. "Your brother needs our help." I looked up. "What does that have to do with me?" "Well," Dad cleared his throat, "the bank needs something substantial as collateral, and since your car is fully paid off—" The pasta turned to ash in my mouth. "My car? Are you serious?" "It's just temporary," Quentin jumped in. 90 days max. The funding will come through way before then." "No," I pushed my chair back. "Absolutely not." "Rachel," Mum reached across the table, her fingers cold against my hand. "He's family. You owe him." "I owe him? For what?" "For all the times he's been there for you," Dad said firmly. "For being your big brother. Family supports each other." I wanted to scream, wanted to ask when exactly Quentin had ever been there for me. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "How much?" "Just 50,000, Quentin said quickly. "The car's worth twice that. It's completely safe." The next morning, I sat in the bank office, my hands trembling as Raymond, the manager, slid the paperwork across his desk. Mum and Dad flanked me like guards, while Quentin lounged in a chair by the window, tapping away at his phone. "Just sign here," Raymond said, pointing to the dotted line, "and here." I held the pen, thinking about all those extra shifts I'd worked, the vacations I'd skipped, the cheap apartments I'd lived in to save money. "You're doing the right thing," Mum whispered, squeezing my shoulder. "He's family." I signed. The sick feeling in my stomach grew stronger as I watched Raymond file the papers away. Quentin was already heading for the door, probably late for something important. "Don't worry, sis," he called over his shoulder. "This time next year we'll all be rich." I sat there, staring at my signature, wondering why those words felt like a death sentence for my beautiful blue Audi. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard the snap of a bicycle chain breaking, followed by the sound of my childhood apologies. The first call from the bank came exactly 32 days after I signed those papers. I was on my lunch break at work when my phone buzzed. "Ms. Rachel, this is Raymond from First Capital Bank. There seems to be an issue with the loan payments." My stomach dropped. What kind of issue? "The last 2 payments haven't been processed. I've been trying to reach your brother, but he's not responding to our calls." I immediately tried calling Quentin, straight to voicemail. Then Mom. No answer. Dad's phone rang 4 times before clicking to voicemail too. My hands were shaking as I texted my best friend Sabrina. "They're not picking up, any of them." She replied instantly, "Come over after work. We'll figure this out." I spent the rest of my shift in a fog, checking my phone every few minutes. Finally, at 6 p.m, Mum called back. "Oh, honey, don't worry about those calls," she said, her voice artificially bright. "Your father's handling it. We're having dinner tonight. Quentin has updates about the business. You'll come, right?" I wanted to say no, should have said no. Instead, I found myself pulling into their driveway at 7:30, gripping my steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Quentin showed up 45 minutes late, strolling in like he owned the place. He was wearing a new designer shirt I knew he couldn't afford. Sorry, he announced, grabbing a plate. "Investor meeting ran long, but wait till you hear this." "The bank called," I cut in before he could launch into another pitch. "They said you missed payments." He waved his hand dismissively. "Minor cash flow hiccup. It's handled." "Handled? What does that mean?" "Rachel," Mum interrupted, "pass the potatoes, dear. Quentin, tell us about the meeting." I slammed my fork down. "No, I want to know about the payments. That's my car on the line." "Don't be dramatic," Dad said, his tone warning. "Everything's under control." Under control? Then why won't Raymond return my calls now? A look passed between my parents that made my blood run cold. Quentin just kept eating, scrolling through his phone with his free hand. "Actually," he said between bites, "we might need to extend the loan period a bit, just a couple more months." "What?" My voice cracked. "No, absolutely not." "Rachel," Mum reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Sometimes these things take time. The important thing is we're supporting each other." "Supporting each other?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "Where's all this support when I need it?" "That's enough," Dad's voice was steel. "We're not discussing this now." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "My car is about to get repossessed, and we're not discussing it." "You're overreacting." Quentin finally looked up from his phone. "It's just a car." Just a car. Just 3 years of my life. Just every extra shift and missed vacation and cheap grocery run. I drove straight to Sabrina's apartment, tears blurring my vision. She took one look at me and pulled out a bottle of wine. "Record everything," she said after I told her what happened. "Every conversation, every text. Something's not right here." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Your parents knew about the missed payments before you did. They're avoiding your questions. And Quentin's wearing designer clothes while defaulting on loans." The next morning, I got another call from the bank. This time, it was a different representative. "Ms. Rachel, we need to discuss the status of your vehicle loan. If the missed payments aren't resolved within 10 days... My phone beeped. Another call coming in. "Mom, I have to go," I told the bank rep. "But please, email me the details." I switched calls. "Mom? Rachel, honey, about last night. You really upset your father with that outburst. Quentin's working so hard, and you're not being supportive." Something in me snapped. I hit the record button on my phone, a feature Sabrina had shown me how to use. "Supportive? My car is about to be taken away. If you'd just be patient, like when Quentin crashed my bike and I had to apologize to him." That was different. You're an adult now. Act like one." Her voice hardened. "And if you refuse to help your brother, don't come crawling back when we stop helping you." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, at the recording symbol still blinking. Then I played it back, listening to my mother's threat echo in my car. That's when I noticed Dad's text from last night. Losing the car would be a small price to pay for family unity. I forwarded everything to Sabrina, my hands steady for the first time in days. "You're right," I texted. "Something's definitely not right here." Her response was immediate. Time to stop playing nice. The official repossession notice arrived in a crisp white envelope. 10 days. I had 10 days before they'd take my car. My hands shook as I dialed Quentin's number for the 20th time that week. "Hey, this is Quentin. Leave a message." I hung up and threw my phone across the couch. It bounced once and lit up with a text from Mum. "Family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable." When I walked into their house that evening, the dining room was set like nothing was wrong. Mum was humming while setting out plates. Dad sat at the head of the table, reading something on his tablet. "Where's Quentin?" I asked. "He'll be here," Mum said brightly. "Sit down, dear. I made your favourite lasagna." "I'm not hungry." I pulled out the repossession notice. "Can we talk about this?" Dad barely glanced up. "We told you it's being handled." "Handled? The bank is taking my car in 10 days. "Well," Mum set down a dish with unnecessary force, "you did volunteer it." The room went silent. I stared at her, not sure I'd heard correctly. What?" "You volunteered the car," she repeated. "No one forced you." "Are you serious right now?" My voice cracked. "You literally guilt-tripped me into signing those papers." "Rachel," Dad's warning tone cut through the air, "that's enough. You're acting childish." "Childish? My car is being repossessed because your precious son—" "Don't talk about your brother that way," Mum snapped. "He's working so hard." "Working?" I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. "He won't even answer his phone. Where is he?" As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A social media notification. I opened it to find Quentin's latest post. A photo of him at some rooftop bar, champagne glass in hand, caption reading, "Celebrating big moves with the team. Entrepreneur, life best pass blessed." I shoved the phone across the table. "Look at your hard-working son." Mum barely glanced at it. "He's networking. That's what successful people do." Successful? I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. "He's stealing my car." "Get out!" Dad's voice was ice. "Come back when you can discuss this rationally." I drove to Sabrina's place, vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. She opened her door, took one look at me and pulled me inside. "I brought reinforcements," she said, gesturing to her laptop. "We're going through every message, every voicemail, every text. We're building your case." "Case? You think this is the first time Quentin's done something like this?" She pulled up an article from 2 years ago, a small business newsletter. There was Quentin, younger, but wearing that same smug smile, standing next to a man named Nathaniel Santiago. The headline read, "Tech startup partners split over financial disputes." "I found 3 more stories like this," Sabrina said. "Different names, same pattern. He takes people's money, makes big promises, then vanishes when it's time to pay up." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. "We raised you better than this." I blocked her number, then Dad's. "Your behaviour is destroying this family." Blocked. Sabrina watched me, her expression soft. "You okay?" "No." I walked to her bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow, harder, colder. But I will be. That's when my phone lit up with a message request. Nathaniel Santiago wanted to connect. "I saw your comment on Quentin's post," his message read. "We should talk. I know exactly what you're going through." I looked at Sabrina, who was already nodding. "Call him." Nathaniel answered on the first ring. "Let me guess, he convinced you to put up collateral?" "My car." He laughed, but there was no humour in it. For me, it was my savings, $50,000. He said it was temporary, just needed it for 90 days. My stomach dropped. The exact same words. "He's got it down to a science," Nathaniel continued. "Uses family, friends, anyone who trusts him. Then when everything falls apart, he plays victim while everyone else loses everything." "Not this time," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "I'm done playing the victim." After I hung up, Sabrina handed me a glass of wine. "So what's the plan?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the recordings I'd been collecting. The threats, the guilt trips, the manipulation. Then I opened my email and started typing. "Dear Raymond, I'd like to schedule a meeting about the loan situation. Please ensure all relevant parties are present." "You sure about this?" Sabrina asked. I looked at my reflection again in her window. The woman staring back smiled. A sharp, dangerous thing. "They wanted family first." I hit send. "Let's show them what that really means." "Everything needs to be perfect," Sabrina said, spreading documents across her coffee table. "One wrong move, and they'll paint you as the bitter sister trying to ruin her brother's success." I nodded, sorting through the pile of evidence we'd collected over the past 3 days. Recordings, screenshots, bank statements, even old photos I'd dug up from previous business ventures of Quentin's. My phone buzzed. Nathaniel again. "Got something you need to see," his message read, followed by a link to a business registration database. Check the ownership structure of his new company. I clicked the link, and there it was. Raymond's name, listed as a silent partner. "The bank manager?" Sabrina leaned over my shoulder. "That can't be legal." "It explains why he stopped returning my calls." I forwarded the screenshot to my email. Add it to the pile. My phone lit up again, Mom this time, calling from a different number. I almost declined, but Sabrina grabbed my wrist. "Answer it," she whispered. "Remember the plan." I took a deep breath and hit accept. "Hello?" "Rachel, finally," Mum's voice dripped relief. "We've been so worried. Your father and I—" "I'm sorry," I cut in, making my voice small, submissive. "I've been thinking about what you said, about family." The silence on the other end was telling. Then, "Oh, sweetheart, we knew you'd understand." "Can we have dinner tonight, all of us?" I caught Sabrina's approving nod. "I want to apologize to Quentin in person." "Of course, I'll make your favourite." "Actually," I interrupted, "can we do it at that Italian place downtown? My treat." 2 hours later, I sat across from my family at Giovanni's, watching Quentin demolish his third breadstick. Mum kept patting my hand, while Dad nodded approvingly at my mature decision. "I just want what's best for everyone," I said, phone recording in my pocket. "Tell me more about the business, Quentin. How's the funding coming along?" He launched into another grandiose speech about market penetration and user acquisition. I noticed he wore another new watch. "And Raymond's been incredibly helpful," he added, making my ears perk up. "Really understands the vision." "Raymond?" I kept my voice innocent. "From the bank?" "Oh, you know," he waved dismissively, "just providing guidance." Dad cleared his throat loudly. Mum's hand tightened on mine. "More wine?" I signalled the waiter, watching them relax as the conversation shifted. Back at Sabrina's that night, we replayed the recording. Every incriminating word, every slip-up, every nervous silence. "Look at this," Sabrina pointed to a document she'd been reviewing. "The signature on the loan extension. It's not even close to yours." I leaned in. There, on a paper I'd never seen, was a crude imitation of my signature. "He forged it," I whispered. "They needed my signature for the extension, so they just forged it." My phone pinged. Raymond, meeting confirmed for Thursday, 2 p.m. All parties will be present. I started gathering the evidence into a folder, but Sabrina stopped me. Wait, she pulled out her laptop. We need to make copies, digital backups, and we need to get these recordings cleaned up. Make them crystal clear. We worked through the night, organizing everything chronologically. The manipulation started small. Guilt trips about missed family dinners, subtle digs about my selfish career choices. Then escalated to the car, the threats, the forged documents. Around midnight, I found an old photo album in my bag. 8-year-old me with my purple bike before Quentin destroyed it. I ripped it up and dropped the pieces in Sabrina's trash. You sure you want to do this? She asked softly. Once you start, there's no going back. My phone lit up with a text from Quentin. Thanks, sis. Always knew you'd come through. Family first, right? I took a screenshot, added it to our evidence folder, and blocked his number. They wanted family first. I looked at Sabrina. Let's show them exactly what that means. The next morning, I sent a carefully worded email to Raymond. Looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. I'll be bringing documentation regarding the loan situation and some concerning business practices that have recently come to light. Please ensure all relevant parties are present. His response came quickly. Perhaps we should discuss this privately first. No, I typed back. Everything needs to be on record. See you at 2. Sabrina helped me pick out a suit. Sharp, professional, nothing like the submissive daughter they expected. Remember, she said as I tried it on, you're not the villain here. You're not even the victim anymore. You're just someone finally standing up for themselves. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Mum. So proud of you for coming around, sweetheart. Family always wins. I stared at myself in Sabrina's full-length mirror, straightening my jacket. Yes, I whispered, it does. The night before the bank meeting, Mum insisted on another family dinner. For unity, she said. I wore a wire, a small recording device Nathaniel had lent me, hidden under my blouse. To family! Dad raised his glass. Everyone clinked except me. I was too busy pressing record. And to successful ventures, Quentin added, shooting me a wink. Thanks to my amazing sister for believing in me. Mum dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. This is how it should be. All of us together, supporting each other. I pushed my food around the plate, forcing a smile. So, Quentin, tell me more about the investors. How's Raymond been helping? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Oh, you know, Quentin shrugged, recovering quickly. Just standard bank stuff. Really? Because I heard he's quite invested in your success. Mum laughed nervously. Rachel, dear, pass the potatoes. Actually, I pressed on, I'd love to hear more about the loan extension, the one with my signature on it. Quentin's smile flickered. What about it? Just curious when I signed it. My memory's a bit fuzzy. Dad cleared his throat. Rachel, this isn't the time. No, please, I insisted, voice honey sweet. When did I sign it? Was it before or after you partnered with Raymond? The silence was deafening. Quentin's phone buzzed, and he practically dove for it. Important call, he muttered, practically running to the hallway. I could hear his urgent whispers. She knows something. No, I don't know how. Yes, Raymond, I know what's at stake. Mum reached across the table, gripping my hand too tightly. Sweetheart, sometimes in business, things get complicated. Complicated? I pulled my hand away. Like forging signatures? That's enough. Dad's voice was steel. You don't understand how these things work. Oh, I understand perfectly. I stood up. I understand that tomorrow's meeting will be very interesting. Quentin returned, his face composed but slightly pale. Sorry about that. Investor call. Actually, great news. We just secured another round of funding. Wonderful, Mum clapped. See, Rachel, everything's working out. I watched Quentin pull out his phone, probably posting another celebratory social media update. Sure enough, minutes later, my phone buzzed with his new post. Big moves tomorrow, watch this space. Shouts about your entrepreneur life. The comments flooded in immediately. Congratulations. Praise. Success story hashtags. Then Nathaniel commented, history repeats itself, TikTok. Quentin deleted it within seconds, but not before I screenshot it. Something wrong? I asked innocently, watching him furiously type on his phone. Just trolls, he muttered. Jealous people trying to bring me down. How awful, I said, standing up. Well, I should go. Big day tomorrow. Mum hugged me too tight at the door. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You're finally understanding what family means. I let her words wash over me, the recording device catching every syllable. Back in my car, I played back the recording. Quentin's whispered phone call was crystal clear. Raymond, fix this. I don't care what it costs. My phone lit up with a text from Sabrina. You get it? Got everything, I replied, including proof that Raymond's involved. Meeting tomorrow will be interesting. Another text came through, this time from Raymond himself. Miss Rachel, perhaps we could meet privately before tomorrow's discussion? Over coffee? No, thank you, I typed back. I prefer to handle everything officially. See you at 2. I drove home the long way, past the dealership where I'd bought my Audi. The same model sat in the showroom, electric blue gleaming under the lights. 3 years of savings, countless extra shifts, all gone because family comes first. My phone buzzed again. Quentin. Hey sis, drinks later? Want to run some numbers by you? Can't tonight, I replied. Need to prepare for tomorrow. About that? Maybe we should talk privately first? I turned off my phone and pulled into my parking spot. Tomorrow would change everything. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, Raymond's involvement, the recorded conversations, Nathaniel's documentation of previous scams. Inside my apartment, I laid out my suit for tomorrow and checked my presentation folder one last time. Everything was in order, backed up in triplicate. My landline rang, Mum's last desperate attempt to reach me. Rachel, please, her voice crackled through the answering machine. Whatever you're planning, remember, we're family. I let her words echo in the empty apartment, thinking about all the times they'd used that excuse. Family first, family loyalty, family obligations. Tomorrow they'd learn what those words really meant. I arrived at First Capital Bank at 1:45 p.m, Sabrina beside me carrying a second copy of everything. The security guard nodded us through, and I caught my reflection in the glass doors. Power suit, straight spine, eyes clear and determined. Raymond's assistant led us to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them all waiting. Raymond at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. My parents sitting stiffly side by side, and Quentin scrolling through his phone with that familiar smirk. Ms. Rachel? Raymond stood as we entered. I really think we should discuss this privately first. No, I cut him off, setting my folder on the table. Everyone stays. Mum reached for my hand. I pulled away. Honey, please. Little and let's begin, I said, pulling out the first document. We're here to discuss loan default, fraud and illegal business practices. Now wait just a minute, Dad started. I turned on my tablet, connected it to the room's display screen. First exhibit, the original loan agreement. Note the date and my signature. Quentin finally looked up from his phone. We all know what we signed, sis. Can we speed this up? Interesting choice of words. I pulled out the second document. Because here's a loan extension I supposedly signed 3 weeks ago, except I was in Miami that day for work. Would you like to see my boarding pass? The room went silent. Raymond shifted in his chair. Next, I continued, We have evidence of undisclosed business relationships between the loan officer and the borrower. I clicked to the next slide. Raymond's name appeared on the business registration documents, his ownership stake clearly listed. "This is ridiculous," Quentin laughed, but his voice cracked. "Raymond's just an advisor." "An advisor who approved a loan using my car as collateral, then partnered with you while concealing the relationship from the bank's ethics board." Raymond stood up. "I think we should take a break." "Sit down." My voice could have frozen hell. "We're just getting started." I played the first recording, Mum threatening to cut me off if I didn't help Quentin. Then the second, Quentin's whispered phone call with Raymond about fixing the situation. "Rachel," Dad's voice was dangerous, "stop this now." "Why?" I clicked to the next slide. "Because of this? Your text about how losing my car would be a small price for family unity?" Mum was crying now. Quentin had gone pale. Raymond was making frantic notes. Or maybe because of these. More slides. Documentation of Quentin's previous failed ventures, complete with Nathaniel's sworn statement about similar fraud patterns. "You're destroying this family," Mum sobbed. "No," I said quietly. "You did that when you chose him over me. Every single time." I nodded to Sabrina, who pulled out her phone and dialed. Moments later, 2 people in suits entered the room. "This is Ms. Martinez from the Banking Commission," I said, "and Mr. Peters from the Fraud Division. They're very interested in this case." Quentin jumped up. "This is insane. Mom, Dad, tell her." "Tell me what?" I turned to face him fully. "That family comes first? That I owe you? That I should just accept having my car stolen because we share DNA?" "Nobody stole anything," Dad tried to interject. I slapped the forged loan extension on the table. "Really? Want to explain this then?" Raymond cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could reach some sort of arrangement." "The only arrangement," I cut in, "is this. The loan is void due to fraud. My car stays with me, and you all get to explain to the Banking Commission exactly how this happened." "You can't do this," Quentin whispered. "Watch me." The next hour was a blur of official statements and signatures. Mum kept trying to catch my eye. Dad sat in stony silence, and Quentin alternated between threats and pleas. I ignored them all. When it was done, Miss Martinez turned to Raymond. "We'll need you to come with us. There are some serious ethical violations to discuss." As they led him out, I gathered my things. Quentin grabbed my arm. "You've ruined everything," he hissed. "All my investors will pull out when this gets out." I smiled. Karma's funny like that. Mom made one last attempt. "Rachel, please, he's your brother." "No," I said, walking toward the door. "He's your son. I'm just the daughter you never bothered to protect." Outside, Sabrina was waiting by my car. My car, still mine, legally and irrevocably mine. "You okay?" she asked. I looked back at the bank's glass doors, where my family stood watching, their reflections distorted and small. "Actually," I said, "I've never been better." The fallout was swift and merciless. 3 days after the bank meeting, Sabrina burst into my apartment waving her tablet. "You're trending!" She thrust the screen at me. "Look!" Local business websites had picked up the story. Bank manager under investigation for fraud. Tech startup founder faces legal scrutiny. Family fraud scheme exposed. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the meeting. Mom called hourly from different numbers. Dad's texts grew increasingly desperate. Quentin's investors were pulling out faster than rats from a sinking ship. "His company's done," Sabrina said, scrolling through updates. "The Banking Commission's investigation scared everyone off." My phone lit up again. Another unknown number. "Rachel?" Mum's voice was raw. "Please, we need to talk. Your father and I." I hung up. A text from Quentin followed. "Hope you're happy. Everything's ruined. My reputation is destroyed." Your reputation, I typed back. You mean your ability to scam people? We're family. How could you do this? I blocked his number. Again. Sabrina handed me a coffee. You should see what Nathaniel posted. His LinkedIn update was simple but devastating. Congratulations to Rachel for exposing what I couldn't prove 3 years ago. Justice comes to those who wait. The comments section was flooded with similar stories. Former colleagues, investors, even old friends sharing their experiences with Quentin's schemes. Rachel! Sabrina suddenly grabbed my arm. Look at this! A legal notice had just been delivered to my email. My parents were suing me for defamation and emotional damages. I laughed. Actually, laughed out loud. They're suing me for telling the truth? They claim you've caused irreparable damage to the family's reputation and maliciously interfered with legitimate business dealings. My doorbell rang. A courier handed me another envelope, a cease and desist letter from Quentin's lawyer demanding I retract my false statements. False statements? I waved the letter at Sabrina. I have recordings, documents, witnesses. They're desperate, she said, reading the letter. This is all they have left, trying to scare you into silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. You've brought shame to this family. Fix this or face the consequences. I took a deep breath and called my lawyer. Don't worry, she said after reviewing everything. Their case is weak. We'll countersue with the evidence of fraud. They'll drop it once they realise how much worse it could get for them. She was right. 2 weeks later, local news reported that Raymond had been fired and was facing criminal charges. Quentin's company filed for bankruptcy. My parents' lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. Then came the social fallout. Their country club friends stopped inviting them to events. Dad's business partners started distancing themselves. Mum's social media went silent after too many negative comments. You've destroyed us, Mum's last voicemail said. We're pariahs in our own community. I saved the message, adding it to my growing collection of evidence. Sabrina brought over pizza one night, finding me sorting through old family photos. Look at this, I said, holding up a picture. My high school graduation. Quentin showed up late, drunk, made a scene, and somehow I ended up apologising to him for overshadowing his business announcement. You're not that person anymore, she said quietly. My phone lit up with a news alert. Local entrepreneur faces multiple fraud investigations. There was Quentin's smug face, now accompanied by a list of his alleged schemes. Your brother's going to jail, my lawyer called to tell me. The Banking Commission found evidence of multiple frauds. They want you to testify. I agreed immediately. That evening, a thick manila envelope arrived from my parents' lawyer. Inside was a proposed settlement. They'd drop everything if I publicly recanted and apologised. I fed the papers into my shredder, piece by piece. You okay? Sabrina asked, watching me. Better than okay. I looked at my reflection in the window. I'm free. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Nathaniel. Karma's finally caught up with them. How does it feel? I thought about Quentin's face when the evidence appeared on that screen. About Mum's tears that weren't for me, but for her ruined reputation. About Dad's authority crumbling as his precious family image shattered. It feels, I typed back, like justice. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I played back the first recording I'd ever made, Mom threatening to cut me off if I didn't help Quentin. Her voice, once so powerful and terrifying, now sounded small and pathetic. And just like that, I whispered to my reflection, the real war began. Because this wasn't just about my car anymore. This was about years of manipulation, of gaslighting, of being told family comes first while being treated as last. And I was just getting started. The courthouse steps were cold under the morning sun as I waited to testify. Sabrina squeezed my hand as we watched Quentin being led in. No designer clothes now, just a plain suit that couldn't hide his defeat. "Ready?" she whispered. I nodded, thinking about the journey that had brought us here. The fraud investigation had uncovered more victims than anyone expected. Today, they would all have their say. Mum and Dad sat in the back row, aged decades in mere months. They didn't look at me as I passed. Their country club membership had been revoked. Dad's business partners had bought him out. Their carefully constructed social facade had crumbled completely. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor said when I took the stand. I leaned into the microphone. "Rachel?" "Tell us about the car, Rachel." So I did. Every detail, every manipulation, every threat. The jury leaned forward as I played the recordings. Quentin stared at the table. Mum cried silently. "And what made you start recording these conversations?" "I was tired," I said, my voice clear and strong, "of being told that family means sacrificing yourself for someone else's crimes." After my testimony, Nathaniel took the stand. Then other victims. The pattern was always the same. Trust, betrayal, threats, silence. Until now. During a break, I stood in the bathroom, splashing water on my face. Mum appeared behind me in the mirror. "I never meant," she started. "Save it." I dried my hands. "The time for manipulation is over. We're still your family." "No," I turned to face her. "Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't threaten and gaslight and destroy." She reached for me. I stepped back. "You taught me family comes first," I said, "so I put myself first. Finally." Back in the courtroom, the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. Quentin's face crumpled as they led him away. Dad stormed out. Mum collapsed in her seat. Outside, reporters clustered around the steps. "Rachel," they called, "how does it feel to take down your own brother?" I faced the cameras. "This isn't about taking down family, it's about standing up for what's right." That evening, I drove my Audi to the dealership where I'd bought it. The same salesman recognized me, waved through the window. I parked but didn't get out, just sat there remembering all the extra shifts, all the sacrifices I'd made to buy it. My phone buzzed. Sabrina sending me a job listing, legal advocate position, victim rights organization. "They help people stand up to financial abuse," her message read. "Thought of you immediately." I smiled, starting my car again. The engine purred to life, but it felt different now. This wasn't just transportation anymore. It was freedom, victory, strength. At home, I found a letter from Dad in my mailbox. Inside was a check, the exact amount I'd spent on legal fees, and a note. "You were right. I'm sorry." I ripped up both. Sabrina came over with wine and takeout. "So what now?" I showed her the job listing. "Now I help others find their voice." "And the recordings?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the folder that held every manipulation, every threat, every lie. With one tap, I could replay it all. Instead, I hit delete. "Don't need them anymore," I said. "Their power over me is gone." My phone lit up with a text from Nathaniel. "Drinks tomorrow? Some of us victims are meeting up. You should come." "Count me in," I replied. Sabrina raised her glass. "To karma." "To justice," I corrected. Later that night, I stood at my window watching the city lights. My reflection showed someone different from the woman who'd signed away her car all those months ago. Stronger, wiser, free. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. Mum again. "Please, Rachel, we're still family." I thought about the courthouse, about Quentin's face as they led him away, about Dad's attempt to buy forgiveness, about Mum's endless tears. "You're right," I typed back. "We are family, and I finally showed you exactly what that means." Then I blocked the number, turned off my phone, and walked away from the window. Tomorrow I'd start my new job, helping others find their voice, their strength, their freedom. They'd taught me family comes first. They just never expected me to redefine what family meant, to choose myself, my truth, my future, and my car. It sits in my parking spot, electric blue gleaming under the streetlights. Not just transportation anymore, but a symbol of everything I'd fought for and won. They wanted family first. Well, they got exactly what they asked for, just not the way they expected.